This is episode 16 of The Winner's Circle, a drag racing podcast. I'm your host, Leroy Lease. This is episode 16, where we're going to talk about the 4 C's of bracket racing. So this is something that I've been working on for a while, and actually, it kind of came from when I would meet new people or people who didn't know much about drag racing, and I would try to explain to them what all was involved. And a lot of times they would kind of go, really? There's that much to it? Like, it looks like a bunch of good old boys just getting in their car and hitting the gas. And sometimes that's true, but for the dedicated bracket racer, there's more to it than that. And so I came up with the 4 C's. It kind of covers, at least at a high level, what bracket racing is all about, or things that you need to think about regarding bracket racing. But before we dig into that, I want to let you know that the Winner's Circle is sponsored by DragTracker.com, an online logbook that serves the racing community through tools and technology. Now, this episode 16 of the Winner's Circle is going to be available on iTunes. It's also available on YouTube, and so if you want to check us out on YouTube, you can watch all the videos of all our episodes there, or you can check us out, like I said, in iTunes, where this is a podcast. It's an online radio show. You can get our content there, and if you'd like our content, go ahead and give us 5 stars on iTunes. That'll help us get more visible for other drag racers when they search for drag racing. The more of those reviews that we get, even if you just leave a comment and say this is great, lots of good stuff about drag racing, that helps us show up when people search for drag racing podcasts. But also on YouTube, if you go ahead and like our video by clicking the link below, that'll really help us out. And also, when people search for things related to drag racing on YouTube, it helps us show up in those results so that we can share this information. So thank you for engaging in that process. So, the 4 C's, and I feel like I should tell you what all 4 C's are right off the bat, but I'm going to kind of give us this list that I'm not going to, each one will be a surprise. And so, the first one is competition. And, a few years ago, I sent out a survey to everybody that was a member of the DragTracker community, and I asked them, what is your favorite part about drag racing? And this is before I ever came up. Actually, this is after I came up with the 4 C's, so competition was already part of it. But this was interesting because the number one thing that people said they loved about drag racing was the competition. Okay, and so drag racing, at least in its normal format, is one racer versus another racer, single elimination, and that's it. So it's very competitive. There's one winner, one loser. It's very clear. And there's, there is second place, but that's after you've beaten everybody on the ladder to get up to be number 1 and number 2. So competition is highly competitive, and what's interesting about that too is I go to trade shows and events, and it's not, there's a lot of good camaraderie. Teams talk to other teams, and people are friends at the track that are even on competing teams that race each other. But the competition is fierce, and it's especially fierce, I've noticed, when, like I said, when I go to these trade shows and conferences with stuff about drag racing or any motorsport. I find that vendors, whenever you come up and talk to them, if you're not clearly a customer, they think they feel like it's competitive. You might be trying to ask them questions so that you can gain a competitive advantage by understanding how their product works. And so even outside of the community, like things that support the racing community are very competitive. Look at the lubricants section. Oils, there are so many different racing oils and fuels, highly competitive. It seems to me that it has a high barrier to entry, but yet it's still highly competitive. And when different events I've been to, there were if there were 40 aisles of tables of vendors, there were 40 different lubricants and oils represented. It's just incredible to me how competitive that market is. So that's the first C, is competition. The second C is consistency. Consistency in bracket racing is absolutely critical. It is what you strive for as much as anything else. Of course, you would love to be the fastest car, but even if you're not, if you're the most consistent car, the most consistent driver, you stand a chance to win. In fact, you have a better chance of winning than just the fastest car. So consistency is paramount. And the way, how do you get there? You know, how do you get a car and yourself trained so that you are just ultra consistent? Well, you can use a practice tree to train yourself. You know, the starting line is where races are won and lost. I mean, they're won and lost at both ends of the track, but give yourself a chance by starting out well. You know, how can you do that? You can do that by practicing on a practice tree. So that's, I mean, that's just one piece of getting consistent. The other couple of ways you can get consistent are to make sure you're eating healthy during the day while you're at the track. That'll help your body have consistent reactions to the impulse of the light. You can make sure you're not drinking sugary drinks right before first round when you have that long delay while they do track prep. You know, little things like that. By getting yourself amped up in the same way before each round. Then there's, sorry, I just got distracted. I'm actually driving right now. I don't know how many listeners we have in Alabama, but I'm driving through rural Alabama trying to get back to my home in Tennessee. Anyway, so consistency, and then with consistency with the car, and that means make sure the tires are always at the same air pressure, front and rear, you know, so you're not affecting your rollout, you're not affecting your 60-foot time by having different amounts of traction. You know, make sure you're, as much as you can, your transmission temperature is always the same, your oil temperature is the same, your water temperature is the same when you get to the starting line. You know, all these things that help make the car run a time or an ET that is going to be consistent. You know, these are the kind of things that you do. So what do we have so far? We have competition, consistency. The third C is commitment. Now, commitment is, I just bring that up because if you're going to run in a points race or divisional races, there's a certain level of commitment you need to have going into it. You need to know that it's going to cost, you know, $100 every weekend to go out racing between your gas and your entry fees. If you do a buyback, you know, be prepared for that. So start to do a budget. Just in your mind, think about, well, if a point series runs, you know, every racetrack does their point series different, but let's say you run, you know, a 2-month points race. They maybe do the short seasons, 2 months, 8 weeks, right? So you want to look at the calendar and go, can I commit to that? Do I have any weddings coming up? I'm gonna have to miss a race. Is there, you know, does it cross with Mother's Day when I'm planning to be racing on a Sunday? I mean, it's just something you have to think about. You know, do we have any vacations planned? They're going to interfere with me being able to get to the track on race day. And, you know, in order to qualify high in a points race, you really need to try and be there every week. I mean, I know it's a hobby, it's a sport, but if you're trying to be competitive, right, and get consistent, you really have to make the commitment to be there as often as possible. And so that just, you know, that's as simple as planning by budgeting and understanding how many runs you can get on your slicks and how many runs you have on your slicks and how much mileage you're going to get out of your oil, spark plugs, and those consumables. Yeah, so that's the third C, which is commitment. Then the fourth C, this is going to come as no surprise, and it actually kind of relates to the third C, but the fourth C is cost, right? So everybody, I mean, it is make no mistake about it, drag racing can be expensive. Besides those $100 race days where I talked about with entry fees and gas, and you got to put rubber on the tire, the wheels every so many runs. The cost, I mean, there's other things that come up. You need new alternator belts, water pump belts, you know, I mean, anything and everything could go up on a race car, right? Eventually you're going to need a new engine or get your engine freshened up. Enclosed trailer, you got maintenance on your tow vehicle and your trailer. You know, these are all things to plan for, because it's going to get expensive. The costs add up. And so those are the 4 C's, you know. Competition, consistency, commitment, and cost. So I was curious, you know, there are a lot of different, there are a number of different podcasts out there that are related to drag racing and motorsports. And, you know, for those of you who have kind of hung with me and been through all the episodes, you know, what's your favorite part? Is it understanding sort of my take on the psychology of drag racing or how stuff works? You know, every once in a while we get questions about something mechanical or electrical. I don't necessarily always have the answers. Usually I've found some article I can refer people to, or just kind of talk to them about how I think about things, whether it's just the priorities of how I either spend my money on different race parts, or the kind of thing I think about when I'm making concessions on the design of whatever, whether it's safety related or whatever. So anyway, what's your take? You know, what's your favorite sort of part? Is it getting ideas for how you can change your starting line game? And anyway, I'd love to hear from you. Podcast at DragTracker.com. We're taking requests, you know, it's that kind of thing. Mostly I just want to know if I'm going in the right direction for things that are serving you. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that yes, but in case there was anybody who was waiting to be asked, just know that this is me asking you, hey, if you've heard something and you thought, man, I wish he'd cover this, whatever, XYZ, let me know what that is. You know, I'm here to serve. I'm coming up with this content because I love this stuff, and I'm not actually running short at all. I have plenty of stuff lined up that I can talk about, but I just wanted to take a second to say, hey, if there's something on your mind related to drag racing, if you're struggling in a certain area, you know, let me know, and maybe we can kind of conquer it together. Again, if it's something about your Hemi, it's not tuned right, I'm probably not going to be able to help you, because first of all, I've never run a Hemi, but besides that, you know, the really nitty-gritty particular about someone's if their racing operation might be tricky, but in general, if there are general questions, you know, I'd love to take a crack at it, and also I can ask people. I meet people all the time, and we can talk about it and see what we come up with together. All right, well, hey, thanks for riding along with me. I know this is a little bit weird for our format as far as being in the car together and while I'm driving, but I had a few hours as I made this trip, and I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to put together a podcast episode, because I can't seem to find time during the week, but I had a minute now, and so here we are. I hope that's okay. I hope the audio's okay. If it's not, it probably won't be like this next time, although you never know. You never know. Anyway, I hope your race season has started out well, and you know, thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing, everybody on YouTube. Alrighty, race safe, race to win, and take care.